Assalamu alaikum. Hope that you all are well. Today we are going to solve the math from your book. It is totally covered from your textbook. This math is for SSC candidate. If you follow the academic curriculum of Bangladesh, then you can find it in the chapter number 2. The chapter name is transactions, where the math number is 1. This is from your textbook. What is the given there? First of all, we have to figure out what is our requirement, what we have to solve. The first one is calculate the total amount of those events which are not transactions. This is the first requirement that we have to fill up. Then the second option, identify the transactions from events and explain reason under equation method. And the last one is show the effects of the transactions on accounting equation. That means there are three requirements. If we allocate the marks, that should be looking like that. For the calculate the amount of those events which are not transactions, this is given for 2 marks. This is for 2 marks, and from the option number B and C, these two are for 4 marks. You can see in total 10 marks. You will be given a math from there, and it's a mandatory. In your final examination, you will get a math like this. From the chapter 1 math, you can easily always find in your final examination. So first of all, we have to focus on what is our first requirement. Calculate the total amount of those events which are not transactions. To be a transactions, there must have 2 conditions. How many conditions? Only 2 conditions. The first one, there must have minimum 2 parties. There must have minimum 2 parties. Is the first criteria. Minimum 2 parties. And the second option is changing the financial condition of the business. Changing the financial condition of the business. Condition of the business. We always record the transactions of business, not owners. That's why you have to always think on the side of the business side. If any cash flow, like inflow or outflow, anything happens in the business, that should be considered as the changing the financial condition of the business. What is given there? I started business with taka 5 lakh. That means what my business received. What is the company's name? Rifat Enterprise. To do this math, you should remember that Rifat is you. It's your math. You should always think on your side, like on the business side. If owner invested business, what my business receives cash. That means because of these transactions, there must be changing the financial condition of the business is noticed here. It is done. Open a bank account depositing taka 50,000. If we open a bank account, what will be the my financial situation of the business? It will decrease the amount of the business, because whenever you are going to pay to the bank, that will indicate the reduction of the cash. That means changing the financial condition of the business. So it's a transactions. Goods purchased on credit. What you are receiving here? Goods. What you are receiving here? Goods. That means whenever you are purchase anything, that should always increase the expenses. On credit means obviously you have to pay it within 2 months or 3 months. It's one kind of indirect obligations, though it's an invisible. What is the visible here? What you are receiving, like goods, it is a visible, but you haven't paid anything. And you are bound to pay him within a certain period of time. That's why it's a transaction. Goods sold in cash, that means cash inflow. That's why it's a transaction. Now try to get this one. The owner has taken loan from bank for personal purpose. Is it for business or for owner's purpose? As it is the personal purpose, that means it is not related to our business. Obviously, it's not a transactions. It's not a transactions. What you have to write down here, as we have been told to calculate the total amount of those events. Calculate the total amount. I have to figure out the total amount. What is the amount here? 40,000. Write down this statement here. What is the given here? The owner has taken loan from bank. Loan from bank for his personal purpose. For his or personal use. personal use or personal purpose. You can write down anything here for his personal use. What is the total amount here? 40,000. Is it clear, sir? It's not a transaction because it's not connected to our business. Because of these transactions, there is no increment or decrement happened in the financial condition of the business, like any cash inflow or outflow isn't seen in the business. That's why it is not a transaction. Ordered placed for buying taka 45,000. Try to get this one. If you order something that till the payment is not considered as a transaction because you have just ordered, you haven't paid anything. There is no increment or decrement in the cash of the business. That's why it's not a transaction. Paid to the creditors, basically it indicates the reduction of the cash of the business. That's why it's a transactions. So what is the non-cash transactions? Ordered placed for buying. You should write down this one. Ordered placed for buying. And what is our amount here? 45,000. Now you have to add this one, these two. What is our total amount? 85,000. Is it clear? Then you have to close this one. The first requirement is done. What we have been told? We have been told to figure out the total amount of those events which are not transactions. So these two are the basic conditions or criteria to be a transaction. Whenever you found that these two characteristics are not found in any way or any transactions or any events here, you can't say it's a transaction. So the first one is a done. And what is our second requirement? Identify the transactions from events and explain reason under equation method. Okay. So while doing this, Matt, you have to give a title here. What do you have to write down here? Identifying identifying the transactions from events and explaining under equation method and explaining under equation method Now try to get this one, sir. What do you mean by equation method? Here equation means we have to show the increment or decrement of the accounting equation. So what is the accounting equation? Like A equal to L plus OE. What are the effects? You can see based on these transactions, you have to write down here. First of all, you have to identify, is it a transactions or not? We have already discussed about this earlier while doing the requirement number one, right? Again, now we have to explain it. How? I started business taka 5 lakh. That means 5 lakh taka is received by my business. That indicates the increment of cash in the business, right? That's why it's a transactions. The first one is a transactions. Because of these transactions, what are the effects we can see in this equation? Now if owner invested anything, what I am receiving cash, that indicates that cash account is increased. Cash account is the element of the asset. If you want to do a journal, it would be like that: cash account debit, because whenever owner invested anything to the business, you have to think on the side of the business. What my business is receiving? Cash increase means asset increased, right? On the other hand, whatever is brought by the owner to the business, it should be always considered as capital. Now you need to get this one. Capital is the element of equity. How you can do? You can see here, equity means capital plus revenue minus drawing minus expenses. You can see here, C means capital, R means revenue, D means drawing, E means expenses. Wherever capital and revenue is increased to the business, that indicates the increment of the equity, because the more capital will be brought by the owner, the more claims of the owner on assets will be increased on the business. That's why, on the other hand, the more revenue will be generated by the business, the more claims of the owner will be increased to the business. That's why it indicates that equity increased. On the other hand, drawings and expenses always indicates the reduction of the equity. If you get it, otherwise you can remember is by following these two techniques. Whenever capital is brought and revenue is earning by the business, that indicates the increment of the equity. On the other hand, drawings and expenses always indicates the reduction of the equity. So because of bringing the capital by the owners, what are the changes you can see here? That indicates the increment of the equity. That means equity increased. So what we have to write down here? Here, both asset, because cash is the element of the asset. Whatever you have to write down based on this accounting equation, A equal to L plus O, asset and equity, asset and what you have to write down here, and equity increased. Is it clear, sir? Because of these transactions here, both asset and equity increased. How? I have already described about it. Now, option number 3. Open a bank account depositing taka 50,000. Now, there might arrive a question. What we are recording here is all the accounts of the Rifat enterprise. Rifat enterprise is my business. If I, that means Rifat enterprise, as it is mine business, as it is mine, that's why I have to think that because of transactions, what happened exactly? If I open a bank account, that means my bank account will be increased. Bank is a element of the asset. Here, asset increased. Bank account debit. How about my cash? Cash will be reduced. Cash account credit. That means asset here also decreased. That means in these transactions, on the one side your asset has increased, on the other side your asset also decreased. It's a transactions, obviously. It's a transaction. What happened here? Asset increased and asset decreased. You can say there must have two parties. Obviously, there should have two parties. Because of opening the bank account, how about my bank account? And what would be the amount of my bank? If I had 2 lakh taka, because of depositing this 50,000 taka from 2 lakh to, it will be increased to 2 lakh 50,000. That indicates the increment of the amount of bank. That's why your bank is a element of the asset. On the one side, your asset has increased. And because of this payment, however, my business situation, my cash will be reduced. That's why asset increased and asset decreased. Is it clear, sir? Now, move to the next one. Goods purchased on credits. Goods purchased on credit. First of all, you have to determine, is there any account name by holding goods? Obviously not. In case of goods, we should always write down purchase account. We should always write down purchase account. Purchase is the element of the expense. Mainly, it's the element of the equity, you can see. The more goods you will purchase, the more cash amount or liability will be increased automatically. For example, you are a seller. Every day you have a grocery shop. Whatever you are going to sell today, tomorrow, or the next day, before a single day or before a day, you have to collect all of them. That means selling is the source of your income and purchasing is the source of your expenses. The more purchase you will, the more goods you will purchase from the suppliers or from the your your business partners or from where, whatever, that indicates always the reduction of the cash. That on the one side, if it is a cash transactions. On the other hand, the more you will purchase goods, it indicates the increment of the expenses. For example, if you want to buy a pen from the local market, what would be happen? The seller will give this pen with a free cost? Obviously not. If you want to purchase one pen, you need to pay 5 taka or 10 taka. If you want to purchase two pen, at the time you have to pay 20 taka. The more goods you will purchase from the seller, the more expenses will be increased to the your business. That's why you can see here. But According to the name of the goods, there is no account. Goods should be always recognized as purchase account. Is it a cash or on credit? On credit. On credit means here accounts payable. Accounts payable. Accounts payable is mostly generated because of on account purchase. You can see purchase and expenses. If you can see expenses is the element of the equity, the more expenses will be occurred in the business, the more decrement of the equity will be shown in the business. That's why as it is a minus figure, you can see here equity decreased, right? Equity decreased. On the other hand, however, the accounts payable. Accounts payable is a liability. Until you have paid to the accounts payable, it should be always considered as the increment of the liability. Whenever you are going to pay him, only in that cases, your liability will be decreased. That means my liability increased. You can see here. That's why it's a transactions. December 5 is a transactions. Here you can see here equity decreased and liability increased. Liability increased. Is it clear, sir? How about December 7? Goods sold in cash taka 45,000. By selling goods, what I am receiving? Cash. Cash indicates the increment of asset. Cash account debit. That means, how about my assets of the business? It indicates the increment of business. How about sales? Sales is the source of income. Sales is the source of income. Sales account credit. You can see the more you sell, the more your revenue will generate. Because if it is a manufacturing based company, by selling goods, they will generate their income. We are teacher, we don't sell anything. We just provide services. That means whatever we are doing is a service based business. So if it is a service based business, instead of sale, you should write down here service revenue. So sales is the source of income or revenue. So revenue always indicates the increment of equity. That means here equity increased. Okay, so that means here both asset and equity increased. The December 7. So December 7 is a transaction. December 7 is a transaction. Here both what? Cash increased and equity increased, right? This is the previous one. Okay. Here both asset and equity increased. Is it clear, sir? Okay. Here both asset and equity increased. This one is done. Then what is our last one? You can see here 10 and 15. Both these transactions, both these are events, they are not transactions. That's why we have to omit this. We don't have to write down this, because what we have to do here, we have been told to identify only transactions, then we have to write down the explanation under the equation method. That's why there are some events which are not transactions, you don't even have to record that. And the last one, paid to the creditors taka 15,000. You can see here what was my liability previously, 25,000. At the time, what we have written here, because of that, we can see here our liability increased. Previously, my liability was 25,000. That means at the time, I was bound to pay to the creditors how much? 25,000 taka. But at the end of the December, I have already paid to him 15,000. That indicates the reduction of the liability. Previously, my liability was 25,000 taka. Whenever I have already paid him to that 15,000, so that indicates the reduction of the liability. Now my current liability is only 10,000. That means because of this payment, my liability has decreased. So accounts payable will be debit. On the other hand, because of this payment, how about my cash situation? Cash will be decreased. So it's a transaction. It's a transaction. Here, both liability and asset decreased. How decreased you can see here. Until I have paid to the my creditors, that indicates the increase of the liability, right? Now I have already paid to him 15,000. So that indicates the reduction of the liability. And because of this payment, how about my cash situation? My cash also reduced 15,000. That's why cash is the element of the assets. That's why I have written here both liability and assets decreased. If you get this one, the requirement 3 is the very easiest one. What do we have to do here? Based on, you can see here how if it indicates the increment of asset, you have to plus, you have to add with the assets. By following this method, we have to solve the requirement number 3. So let's move to the our third requirement. This is one of the easiest math that we are going to do today. What is the requirement? Show the effects of the transactions on accounting equation. Or you might have been told like that, prove that. Or you have been told like that, prove that A equal to L plus OE. A equal to L plus OE. Both are similar format and same answer. Both are similar format. L plus OE or E. Both are similar. Show the effects of the transaction on accounting equation is the synonymous with like prove that A equal to L plus OE. Now, what do we have to do? First of all, you can see here. I started business with taka 5 lakh. What I am receiving here, if you want to do it as journal, cash account debit, you can see here cash account debit and capital account credit. Most of the students, while doing this math, do a basic problem here. What are they? In case of the equity. If you have any problem, for your convenient, you can write down here like this. C plus R minus D minus A. C plus R, you have to always plus, and D minus always index the reduction. Or if you have any confusion to write down here, you shouldn't write down. By using pencil or anything, you can write down on the top of the equity. In that case, you don't even have to think of that. Capital plus revenue minus drawing minus expense. Therefore, these four elements you need to calculate here. Whenever capital and revenue will be generated to the business, you should add in this column, and drawings and expenses, whenever you can see the transactions, you should deduct from the total amount. Is it clear, sir? Okay. Now you can say, how about the cash amount? I started business with cash. That means my cash amount has increased. What is the amount here? 5 lakh. 5 lakh. Then whatever is capital, capital and revenue, that means plus. Plus means that indicates the increment of the equity. 5 lakh. What is December 3? Open a bank account, deposited bank. But before that, you have to do a balancing here. Whatever written here, you should write down. It's a very easiest way to ensure about your math. You can see both balance. Before equal 5 lakh and after equal 5 lakh. That means my math is okay. What we have been told in the December 3. Open a bank account depositing taka 50,000. That means if we deposit to the bank, what about my bank situation? Bank account debit. Bank account debit. That indicates that my bank account has increased. What is the amount? Bank account has increased 50,000. Write down here 50,000. On the other hand, how about my cash situation? Reduction of the cash because of this payment, cash account credit. So deduct from cash. Is it clear, sir? On the one side, my bank account has increased. On the other hand, because of these transactions, my cash also reduces. Deduct this one. What is my amount here? 4 lakh 50,000 and 50,000. That means if we considering the asset side, what is our total amount? 5 lakh. You can see here, there is also 5 lakh. There must be equal from the both sides. While doing a step by step, you should always consider both of the sides amount, as you don't have to go through any problems at the end of this math. While doing this math, try to get this one, try to match the both balance at the time. You can see 4 lakh 50,000 and 50,000. What is my total amount on the asset side? Before equal 5 lakh. What is after 5 lakh? That means all are equal. What is the transactions of the December 5. Goods purchased on credit. That means goods purchase. Purchase is an expenses, right? You can say purchase expense debit. Purchase expense debit. But as it's an on credit transactions, that means creditor account credit or accounts payable. Creditor or accounts payable, both are synonymous word. You can write down any one of them. Now you need to get purchase. Purchase is the element of the expenses. Purchase is the element of expenses. So whenever expenses is happening in the business, that indicates the reduction of the equity. That means we have to deduct this amount. What is our amount here? What is our amount here? 25,000. Deduct 25,000 taka. How about my liability? My liability has increased because I haven't already paid to him. Until the payment, until the payment to the creditors, that always indicates the increase of the liability. Whenever I am going to pay him or I have already paid to him, that indicates the reduction of the liability. Okay, sir. Now, what is my liability here? My liability is always the same amount, 25,000. 25,000. Now, calculate this amount. Balancing method, 25,000. Now, 4 lakh 75,000. If we accumulate all of them, my total amount is 5 lakh taka. You can see the same amount, 4 lakh 50,000 taka, then 50,000 taka. On the asset side, we can see there are also same amount. For the December 7th, goods sold in cash taka 45,000 taka. By selling goods, how about my cash situation of the business? That indicates the increment of the cash. That means increase means you have to add with them. That means cash account debit, sales account credit. You can see sales is the symbol of revenue. That means by selling goods, you can generate your income. That indicates the equity increase. What is the total amount? 45,000 taka. Now we have to calculate all of them. 4 lakh 75, 4 lakh 75,000 plus 45,000. 5 lakh 20,000. Then here 25,000. Then 50,000. Then 4 lakh 95,000. Now you have to add all of them. We have to check is it a right or wrong from the both sides. 4 lakh 95,000 plus 50,000. What is the total amount of assets? 5 lakh 45,000 taka. You can see after adding these two one, 25,000 and 5 lakh 25,000. What is our total amount here? 5 lakh 45,000. That means all of the sides amounts are equal. What is the December 20? Paid to the creditors taka 15,000. Because of this payment, however, my liability. Previously, my liability was 25,000 taka. Whenever I have paid to him, that indicates the reduction of the creditor, right? How much? How much I have paid to him? 50,000. That means previously my creditor was 25,000 taka, but I have already paid to him 15,000 taka, right? That indicates the reduction of the creditor. On the other hand, because of these transactions, how about my cash situation of the business? Previously, my cash amount was 4 lakh 95,000 taka. Because of paying to the creditors, that indicates the decrement of the cash. What is the total amount? 15,000, right? Deduct this one. Most of the cases you can see, to be convenient with the math, to reduce my errors, I'm doing a basic symbols. You can see whenever I'm deducting anything, I always use a bracket mark as I can easily identify I have to add with them or I have to deduct them. Please follow the same procedure. Every after enlisting every transactions, I am always calculating from all of the side, considering as I can find out any errors happening or not. How? By calculating all of them. If I find that their amount is totally different from each other, that means my math is going to the wrong side. I have to get this one, deduct this one. 4 lakh 80,000 and 50,000. Right. Now 20, then 10,000, then 5 lakh 20,000. What is our total amount? Now you have to figure out. What is our total amount? Before asset, you shouldn't write down anything. 5 lakh, you can see here. What is our total amount? 4 lakh 80, 5 lakh 30,000 on the asset side. However, here you can see 5 lakh 30,000, both are same. Whenever you see that your asset equal to liability plus owner's equity and all the amounts are similar on the both side and the same, that means you are sure about your math. You can ensure that whatever you have done is totally right. This is the one of the easiest math. By serial, one by one, all the maths will be given there. And thank you so much, sir. Stay well and healthy, and best of luck for the next classes. Assalamu alaikum.